Hello, Raising Family. It's Eric and Erica.
How you guys doing?
We are sitting with our wonderful lender, Rob Briner.
Preferred lender
of choice. We are sitting with him today because there seems to be a growing sense of fear with the real estate market right now, with what's happening with interest rates, with prices going up or going down. Is the market crashing? What's happening with Russia? So much is going on. So we thought that we would have a sit down with you guys and with Rob and hopefully get your questions answered and kind of just put stuff in a real good perspective.
'Cause I don't wanna live, I don't wanna die, I don't wanna life without my life, I don't wanna go.
So Rob, here we got some couple questions we're going to ask you.
Okay.
What are you seeing right now in the marketplace as far as the and most importantly, like the emotions that people are feeling with the higher interest rates?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. The emotions are probably the leading driver right now for a lot of people. And I think what a lot of people forget is that rates right now, depending on your program, they're somewhere around 5%, plus or minus a little bit. And we're recording this right now, just July 6th, 2022. Rates for the last 2 years were insanely low and abnormally low. If you look back historically, taking out the 70s, which had rates in the high teens, 15%, 18%, looking back 100 years, we're at really average interest rates. 5%, 6%, 7% is really typical for a market. But we have this recency bias where so many people got used to seeing interest rates at 2.5%. 2.75%, 3%. And now that we're above that, it feels weird and out of place. So I think it's easy for people to expect rates to go back down to what were abnormally and too low for a healthy market. And I think it just takes time for us to understand that this is probably the new normal. Getting used to it can be difficult. There's a good chance that even with rates being higher, that prices, we don't know what will happen. They may not fall. They might even go up. And there's a lot of cases where higher rates actually did still equal the same or higher prices. So I think the sooner that someone can understand history and what has happened, the sooner they can just come to terms with it and understand that we're not in high interest rates, we're in normal interest rates. And that actually is a good thing for a healthy market, to looking at it from a long-term perspective of home ownership.
So people view their homes in like a piggy bank, kind of like this. The house is their bank and the value is there. So if people are essentially fear of losing that value, right? They don't want to spend too much and then everything crashes and now they're like, dang, I lost $100,000. I had all this money in my bank, essentially, quote unquote, but now my house isn't valued and I have a high mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have my house is worth peanuts. Crap, what do I do?
Yeah. Well, that's again going back to the recency bias, where the last thing we remember as a big economic event for the housing market was the 2008 crash. It was really recent. Just like the last couple of years showed us low rates, we want to feel that again. Let's touch on that crash a little bit. The 2008 housing crash was very different from today. There was a simple problem in 2008, and we had bad loans and ran out of liquidity. People were not qualifying based on income. Credit checks didn't matter. Nothing really mattered in order to get a loan. You had to show up, you would sign paperwork that same day and close in your house in one day. Right now, it takes 30 days to close on a loan. Everything's verified. So we don't have the same weak mortgage market. So just because home prices are back up in the 2008 levels doesn't mean we're going to see a 2008 event, simply because mortgages are very well, they're very well underwritten. They're very well qualified for. People can simply afford the payments. So if we see a change in the market, it's going to happen really slowly. And I don't really expect a cliff fall, a fall off in prices like we saw in 2008.
Good to know, because that is something that a lot of people are asking, or a lot of people are thinking in terms of wanting to get into investing, that they're going to kind of, play things smart and wait for a crash in order to start investing. So people are waiting for this crash major thing like 2008. And what you're saying is that it's probably not going to happen.
We don't know. And it's anybody who says one thing or the other, it's difficult because we're a bit in uncharted territory. The way I frame it for people right now is homes until the last 20 years were not thought of as an investment. Your house was where you lived. It was something that you needed to raise a family, to whatever you did. And now they've turned into this investment vehicle, which in a lot of ways it is. It's the largest purchase you're going to make in your whole life. It's oftentimes the biggest part of someone's net worth. But looking at it the same way as your 401k or stock portfolio, I think can lead people down a wrong path. The way I frame it now is, if you know you have to move within a year or two, maybe buying a home isn't the best, because it's possible we could see prices fall 5 or 10%. Why would you want that to happen if you know you have to sell? But if you're looking for some place to start a family and you know you're going to stay put, or you can stay put for 5 or 10 years, history has shown us that it's probably a safe bet to do that, even if you saw a little decline in price in the short term. Because the reality is a short-term decline in prices probably means rising interest rates, which means that the payment that someone gets by paying a lower price at a higher interest rate is probably the same as you could today. That's if prices fall. I'm not saying they will. It's really hard to know, but I always say look at it in terms of how long are you going to be in this home. Short term, maybe not. Long term, it's probably still a safe move.
Okay, so what we've seen with in looking at just the trend of it, that housing markets, if you're every 5 to 10 years, or about 10 years or so like that, it goes 50 to 100% the value of the home. So I mean, some people look at that as inflation, being it's like, okay, it dropped. That's how much your dollar is now devalued. Or we turn around and flip it on the more positive side, make you feel better. It says, oh no, it's just the land is that much more expensive. So, and we're not seeing really increase in people's incomes. So they're kind of like stuck in this position of crap. My income isn't increasing, and yet I qualify for less. Where like a few months ago I qualified for say 500,000. Now with higher interest rates, am I expecting that I qualify for a lot less?
Generally, yes. Yeah, higher interest rates equals a higher payment. People qualify for mortgages based on the payment. So if the payment goes up for any reason, whether you're paying more for a home or the interest rates are higher, you're going to qualify for a little bit less.
Okay, little bit.
Kind of on how much less?
How much? A little bit, because
it's difficult to say a blanket statement. I would say for every % of interest increase, well, I can try to estimate for us real quick. For every % of interest increase, so if we went from 5% to 6%, you're probably looking at about $25,000 reduction in purchasing price. So $25,000 per 1% would be a good ballpark. So if we went from 5% to 10%, that's 5% increase. You're looking at $125,000 less you can qualify for, or you'd have to pay quite a bit more to get the same price home.
And that puts, now that, let's say that using the $500,000 example, that's $500,000 purchasing power today. That 500,000 would be now at 375.
If we went from 5% to 10%, yeah, 500 today is 375 at that time. So you lose a huge amount of ability to purchase.
Right. And the way I'm seeing it right now, that means you, as a real estate agent, Erica's looking at her, showing her clients like, hey, we need to move. It's basically location, right? So with location, nothing's going to be in that 375 point that you actually already have to go.
It's already not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. And we're seeing that now. People are moving farther the way they have to. Gas prices are up. I talked to somebody yesterday who they want to move closer to their work. Well, they have to pay double for the house because they're spending a lot of money on gas. If they had bought a home where they wanted to be 5 years ago, maybe they would have stretched a little bit. Going forward in the future, they would have been in a better position today. And we don't know what's going to happen, but the cost of living is going up. We're not going to see $2 gas in California probably ever again. And there's a good chance things are going to keep going up. So sometimes making that stretch and buying something when maybe it's more than they want, but they're still able to do it and it makes sense for where they live, where they want to be, where they work. When you look at things long-term, 5-10 years down the future, it's probably going to be a good move because the cost of living probably isn't going down. Here, I'll frame it in one way. Okay. Inflation right now, we're printing an 8%, 9% increase in inflation. Mortgage rates are still at 5%. So right now, the amount of interest you pay on a home is lower than the inflation rate. So the value of your mortgage is greater. You're borrowing money to buy a home at a cost that is lower than the rate of inflation. Because of that, your rent is probably going to go up faster than mortgages do. Rent tends to follow inflation. I mean, in the 2008 housing crash, what happened to rents? Yeah, they went up. Yeah, people lost their homes and rents went up. And even so, no matter what happens with home prices, rents seem to consistently go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to keep happening regardless. So buying a mortgage, you're really investing in time. You're going to borrow money at a cheaper rate than inflation. And when you look at it, you buy a home for decades, you'll come out way ahead. I mean, ask anybody who bought a home 30 years ago if they came out ahead. We know that answer.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Look at property taxes. In California, we have a proposition. I think it's I forget the number, 15, 13, I forget what it is. There's a proposition that limits the amount of property taxes that your property tax bill can go up every year. Taxes can't go up more than 2% per year from what you're paying. When someone buys and sells a home, if taxes should have gone up 5% a year, but because you bought a home, it only goes up 2% a year. When you sell the home, California makes up for that lost tax revenue. So for somebody who bought a home for, like you said, $89,000, they're paying taxes based on $89,000 plus 2% maximum per year. So even if everything went up from incomes to home prices, and let's say you buy a home for $1 million in 20 years from now, but your income doubled as well. So you're roughly in the same boat. Property taxes also will go up. But if you had bought that home at $500,000 when you could have afforded it 10, 20 years ago, your property taxes are still going to be in that low bucket. We've heard the story of someone, my grandparents bought a home in north of LA a long time ago. Their property tax bill was somewhere around $600 a year. Someone buying a home now, they're paying $800 a month for property taxes. So that's one big thing people a lot of times overlook is that's one other big part of it. So when you look at a long-term perspective, it really goes back to what I said earlier, is that if you're going to stay in a home for 5 or 10 years or have the ability to, history shows us that's going to be a good move for you and your finances.
That's really great. That's a great point to make towards the potential first-time home buyer who is really wanting to purchase a home, but they're seeing the rates change right now. And they're like, oh man, maybe now's not the time. So that's a really great point to make, is that when you get in the real estate market and when you actually purchase your home and hold on to it, it puts you in a better position.
Mm-hmm.
For the seller who purchased their home within the last 5 years, right? So say someone's purchased their home 5 years ago. So what is that? We're 2022 now. So bad math, 5 years.
2017.
Yeah, there you go. So 2017. They bought their home in 2017, and now they're here and they want to sell their home because they want to make all that. I mean, in the last 2 years, we've seen $200,000 increase.
Sure, they want to take the profit, take their equity.
So they're looking to, hey, should I sell my house? I mean,
I can make a profit now, but I'm also purchasing at the higher rate. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, would that be worth it?
This is all a good reason why
local, Yeah.
This is a reason why they need to talk to someone like you guys, because these answers are never cut and dry for anybody. It depends on what they're trying to do. So if someone needs a bigger home or a smaller home for that matter, and they have a good reason to do it, then there's probably a good case to be made. If they need to, if they just want to cash out to go buy some toys, well, that's not usually a way to go. But I would encourage anybody who's unsure about that, sit down with someone like yourselves or myself, and we can illustrate what it looks like for them to make that kind of move. Because finance is not, if finance was simple, then there wouldn't be a need for people like you or people like myself to help people out. So it depends on each person's situation.
Yeah, we typically, those people who are watching this, that they've most likely have gone through our initial consultation. We take an invested approach to everything that we do with real estate. So we've been looking at it. We asked 7 questions to find out if it's the time to buy, they should do today, or if they should wait 10 years. Because like you're saying, it's more of a long-term investment strategy than it is just a quick flip,
And it is unique on the family. So whatever the news is saying, whatever, the latest trending story is, doesn't always apply. It's not the cookie cutter for everybody.
Right.
Each family is different. And so I appreciate that, because we do specialize in families. And a lot of these families, are a good handful of them for sure, have even spoke with you on the phone where we're talking with them. We're like, you know what? That's a great question for Rob. Hey, Rob, you're on speaker right now. Yeah. So we really appreciate.
No one knows it all. We have experts.
Yeah.
But being able to have you there have been countless times where we've been able to sit down with a client and literally we call you and they're like, it's funny because we say, hey, we call the bank, talk to your bank. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'll call the bank this week. I'm like, all right, well, let me call Rob real fast.
Yeah, or
and
the
you pick
bank
up.
Is closed. We
right?
have to wait until Monday.
It's your clutch. So that's why you're a preferred lender. So
so we've kind of talked just briefly about the projections or the thought process are good things to consider as a first-time home buyer, good things to consider as one who would be reselling and purchasing again. What about an investor, maybe a first-time investor in this season, in this market, with all the potentials and everything, though it's up in the air? do you think it's a good time for them to get into investing?
It can still be a good time. With everything, it depends on that person. I would say someone who's looking to get in and make a quick buck due to appreciation right now might be a little more of a risky time to do that. However, if you're looking at something that's going to be cash flow, like a rental property or an Airbnb, something that they're looking at more as a long-term business where if their business plan is just to sell it to somebody else for more later, I would caution against that, just to really look at your market. Some markets will still go up, not all of them. But rental properties, absolutely. I mean, looking at historical rates, getting a rental property at 5 or 6% interest rate, rental property rates are always a little higher than someone who lives in a home. So that's why I say 6%. Still a really good time. And if it cash flows, which a lot of places that you guys specialize in still do have positive rental cash flow, absolutely, it's still a good move to do.
That's fantastic. Rob, we appreciate this time that we've had with you. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. We're probably going to do
pleasure,
because the market keeps changing just a little bit. So
yep.
Another update from good old Rob Briner from Clickmore.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Valuable.
Absolutely.
Final question. Is this the right time to buy or sell?
It is, for some people, it is the right time. It's a great, if you have, especially if someone who maybe has more than one home or has a home where they're downsizing, awesome time to cash out on a bigger home and to take some of that and put it to better use. Or it's a good time to move that into a new property. And as far as buying goes, if you're looking at it for a long-term purchase, you're going to set down roots and you have, work that's close by, you have schools that your kids are in that you want them to stay in. Long-term, I think it's definitely a good move.
Much, Rob. I appreciate you.
Raising Family community, we are hoping that this conversation has been valuable to you. If you guys have any other questions, let us know. You can comment, you can text, you can do all the social ways to get a hold of us. And we could even direct you to Rob Briner.
Yes.
His page, his information, you can ask him questions directly too.
It's on the back of our magazine that we put out every month. So check that out as well. Rob, where can I get a hold of you?
I'm easy. Lendingbyrobert.com is probably the best, or my cell phone. You can put it up on the link of the screen, 619-300-2800.
Awesome. All right. I think we're going to have to give you a Rob hour.
It's always changing. We keep our finger on the pulse and we need to give people current data. So it's good to do that.
All right.
We appreciate
it. Plug there somewhere.
You'll be at the top of my list.
Sounds good. Cool. Right. We appreciate you.
Have a great day.
Talk to you later.